Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. Today we're going to be delving into the sometimes unsettling world of cultish language.
That's right. We'll be drawing insights from Amanda Montell's book, Cultish. And I think what's really fascinating about this book is it explores not just extreme cults, but how language can be used to influence us in everyday life.
Yeah, and it's not about pointing fingers or labeling anyone.
Exactly. It's about equipping ourselves with the knowledge to spot these patterns and navigate a world that's, increasingly saturated with persuasive language.
So think of this deep dive as like developing a linguistic radar, right?
Yeah.
To help us discern genuine connection from manipulative control.
Absolutely. It's a valuable skill to have in today's world.
So the book starts off by acknowledging something pretty fundamental about us humans.
Mm-hmm.
We crave connection. We're wired for it. It's like this innate need.
Yeah, and it's that very human need that can be exploited, especially, in a world that often feels isolating.
Right, exactly. And, feeling overwhelmed even.
Oh, absolutely.
And Montell argues that language is the ultimate tool for creating this sense of belonging.
And more importantly, for shaping influence.
Right, because it's adaptable. It's easily adopted, and its impact can be profound and long-lasting.
And think about it, language is how we make sense of the world. It shapes our thoughts, our beliefs, and ultimately our actions.
Yeah, it's like the foundation of how we interact with everything.
Exactly.
And to kind of illustrate how deeply ingrained these language patterns can become, Montell shares a personal story about a friend who joined Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
And even after leaving the program,
Right.
her friend continued using AA's specific language.
Interesting.
Which, shows how these patterns just become so ingrained in us.
It really highlights how language can linger, shaping our thinking long after we've left a particular environment.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is. It's very powerful.
No, what I found really fascinating is how Montell connects this innate need for belonging to the rise of the spiritual but not religious movement.
Oh, absolutely. With traditional institutions declining, many, especially millennials, are seeking alternative paths to meaning and connection.
Right. And they're finding it in groups that employ, often, very similar linguistic strategies to foster a sense of belonging, even if those groups seem very different on the surface.
Right. It's fascinating how these seemingly disparate groups use such similar tactics.
Now, to illustrate the potent role of language in these groups, the book dives into some truly chilling examples.
Yeah.
Starting with the infamous Jonestown Massacre.
Right.
Now, most people associate the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid with this tragic event.
Mm-hmm.
But a fact often overlooked is that it was actually Flavor Aid.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It highlights how language shapes our collective memory, even if inaccurately.
That's fascinating how these little details can change the narrative.
Right. And Jonestown, led by Jim Jones,
Yes.
was initially presented as this utopian community.
A haven from societal injustices.
Exactly. And this narrative deeply resonated with his followers, many of whom felt marginalized and disenfranchised.
It's understandable why people would be drawn to such a message.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jones was a master manipulator,
Oh, yeah.
skillfully weaving biblical verses with socialist rhetoric
Wow.
to create this compelling narrative that promised a better world.
It's a potent combination.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
But as his power grew, so did his paranoia and cruelty.
Right.
He implemented public humiliation, instilled fear of the outside world, and his language became increasingly apocalyptic.
Demanding absolute obedience.
Exactly. And one of the most chilling pieces of evidence is the death tape,
Oh, yes.
a recording of Jones's final speech before the mass suicide.
It's a haunting reminder of how language can be used to manipulate and control.
It really is. And on the tape, you can hear him urging his followers to drink cyanide-laced Flavor Aid,
Wow.
framing it as revolutionary suicide.
It's just chilling how he twists the narrative to fit his agenda.
And to make matters worse, he even uses the cries of children in the background,
Oh, my goodness.
masterfully manipulating their parental instincts.
Pushing them towards a horrific act that they believed was an escape.
Exactly. It's a haunting reminder of how language can distort reality and justify unthinkable actions.
Absolutely. A stark warning about the power of words.
Now, another suicide cult explored in Cultish is Heaven's Gate, led by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles.
Right. They believed a spaceship trailed the Hale-Bopp comet, and that suicide was their ticket to a higher plane of existence.
Yeah, it's a bizarre belief system, and their language mirrored this.
Oh, sure.
They called themselves the Away Team, use the suffix "odi" for their names, signifying a break from their past.
Interesting.
And chillingly referred to death as leaving Earth.
It's like they created their own language to reinforce their worldview.
Exactly. And their uniform appearance upon death, all dressed identically,
Right.
really visually represents how cultish groups enforce conformity, using language to erase individuality.
And replace it with a collective identity.
Right. And what's even more fascinating, the Heaven's Gate website.
Is it still active?
It's still active today.
Wow.
It's like a digital time capsule filled with Applewhite's pronouncements and esoteric language.
It's a reminder of how the internet can amplify these ideologies, giving charismatic leaders a global reach.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And from these tragic examples, Montell identifies some key linguistic tactics employed by these groups.
Okay.
First, there's love bombing.
Right. Showering recruits with attention and validation, creating a sense of belonging and specialness.
Exactly. Then comes the isolation tactic.
Fostering an us versus them mentality, demonizing anyone outside the group.
Creating a sense of fear and dependency.
Right. It makes members completely reliant on the group for validation and support.
Exactly. And finally, they use loaded language and thought-terminating cliches.
To control the narrative and shut down critical thinking.
It creates an echo chamber where dissent is discouraged and the leader's word is absolute truth.
These tactics are so insidious because they often work on a subconscious level.
Right. We might not even realize we're being manipulated.
Exactly, which is why it's so important to be aware of them.
Yeah, we'll delve deeper into these tactics as we continue our exploration.
Okay.
But for now, let's shift our focus to Teal Swan, a contemporary figure accused of employing similar language to cultivate a devoted following.
Teal Swan.
Yeah. She's gained a significant online presence, often referred to as a spiritual catalyst by her supporters.
But also labeled a suicide catalyst by critics.
Right, who are concerned about her teachings on mental health and suicide.
That's a concerning contrast.
It is. And Swan blends spiritual jargon with psychological terms, creating an aura of expertise despite lacking formal credentials.
So she's playing on both the spiritual and the scientific to gain credibility.
Exactly. She talks about synchronicity, frequency, and the Akashic records, alongside diagnoses like borderline personality disorder.
It's a dangerous mix because it blurs the lines between spirituality and mental health.
Exactly. And her soothing voice adds to the mystique, making her seem both nurturing and all-knowing.
Yeah, that can be very persuasive.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one of her most controversial teachings is her view on suicide.
Okay.
She stated that it can feel delicious to die, framing it as a form of liberation.
Wow, that's a very provocative statement.
It is, and it's alarmed mental health professionals.
Rightfully so.
Because they warn of the potential harm for those struggling with suicidal thoughts.
Absolutely. It's a very sensitive topic, and her language could be incredibly dangerous.
Exactly. And while Swan's teachings haven't resulted in tragedies on the scale of Jonestown or Heaven's Gate,
Okay.
her case raises ethical questions about the responsibilities of spiritual influencers, especially those delving into sensitive topics.
It's a gray area that needs more attention and discussion.
Definitely. And it underscores the need for critical thinking when navigating the world of online spirituality and self-help.
Especially when encountering figures who claim to hold profound, life-altering wisdom.
Right. Because not all that glitters is gold.
That's a good way to put it.
So far, we've seen how language can be weaponized to create a dangerous sense of us versus them and to justify harmful actions. But now let's move on and explore the often overlooked world of cults hiding in plain sight.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Okay, so where are these cults hiding in plain sight?
Well, let's start with some controversial religions, like Scientology and the Children of God.
Okay.
Scientology, founded by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard,
Right.
is known for its complex and often baffling language system.
Yeah, I've heard a bit about it.
It's a world of auditing, pre-clears, and the bridge to total freedom.
It sounds more like science fiction than religion.
Exactly. And that's precisely the point.
Okay.
This specialized language creates an air of exclusivity and mystery, making members feel like they possess secret knowledge.
Separating them from the outside world.
Exactly. And one unsettling practice is word clearing.
Word clearing.
Yeah, where members are made to confront and redefine words they've supposedly misunderstood.
That sounds a little Orwellian.
It is. Essentially, it's stripping their vocabulary of anything that might challenge the church's teaching.
So it's a form of thought control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By dictating how members define and use language, Scientology aims to control how they think and perceive the world.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It is. And Montell recounts her experience at Scientology headquarters in Los Angeles.
Okay.
She and a friend, lured in by personality tests, were quickly labeled potential trouble sources based on their results.
Just for taking a personality test.
Yeah. It's a prime example of how Scientology uses language to categorize and control individuals.
It's a way to silence dissent and isolate those who question their authority.
Right. And their language also creates a sense of urgency and fear. They emphasize the need for clearing oneself of negative influences.
Playing on people's anxieties and insecurities.
Exactly. And they offer this seemingly clear path to salvation through expensive courses and auditing sessions.
So it's a business model disguised as a religion.
In a way.
Yeah.
Now, another group explored in Cultish is the Children of God.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, a notoriously abusive Christian cult later rebranded as the Family International. They were known for extreme biblical interpretations, justifying abuse and exploitation under the guise of religious freedom.
That's awful.
It is. And their leader, David Berg, who called himself Father David,
Okay.
used biblical language to manipulate followers. He claimed divine revelations and often spoke in apocalyptic terms, demanding complete submission.
So he was using the Bible to control people.
Exactly. And the book shares the harrowing story of Fleur Edwards, who grew up in this environment. And remarkably, despite being immersed in their distorted language from childhood,
Wow.
she developed skepticism and eventually escaped.
That's incredible that she was able to break free from that indoctrination.
It is. Her story reminds us that even when indoctrinated with harmful language, critical thinking can prevail.
Right. It shows the importance of trusting our instincts and questioning authority, even those claiming religious authority.
Exactly. Now, Montell argues that religious language is powerful because it's performative.
What does that mean?
It doesn't just describe reality. It actively creates reality for believers.
So the words themselves have power.
Exactly. And that's why it's so effective in shaping beliefs and behaviors.
I see.
By using specific words and phrases, religious leaders can evoke powerful emotions and instill a sense of awe and reverence.
It's like a form of hypnosis almost.
In a way, yeah. Now, Cultish also delves into glossolalia,
Glossolalia.
or speaking in tongues,
No, right.
a phenomenon found in various religious traditions. It involves uttering seemingly unintelligible sounds, often believed to be a divine language.
It's a fascinating phenomenon.
It is. And while the scientific explanation is debated, Montell focuses on its sociological function.
Okay.
It serves as a powerful marker of belonging and shared identity.
Creating unity and separating members from outsiders?
Exactly. And it can also be highly emotional, leading to feelings of euphoria and a deeper connection to the divine.
So it can be a very powerful experience.
It can. However, like any powerful tool.
It can be misused.
Exactly. Montell cites examples of groups pressuring members into speaking in tongues, using it as a form of control and manipulation.
That's disturbing.
It is. It raises ethical concerns about potential abuse within religious contexts, particularly when individuals are vulnerable and seeking spiritual guidance.
It's a reminder that even in spiritual settings, we need to be aware of potential manipulation.
Right. Now, Montell also examines how the language of meditation and mindfulness, often associated with Eastern traditions, can be co-opted by groups with harmful agendas.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. She shares the story of Abby Shaw, who joined the Shambhala Buddhist community seeking spiritual growth,
Okay.
but became disillusioned by their hierarchy and demands for unquestioning devotion.
So even seemingly peaceful practices can be twisted.
They can. And Shaw's experience, which took a dark turn with accusations of sexual assault against the leader,
Oh, wow.
shows how even seemingly benign practices can foster dependency and obedience.
It's a reminder to be wary of groups demanding unquestioning loyalty, even those seemingly promoting peace and enlightenment.
Exactly. Now, from the complexities of religious language, let's shift gears to a realm where manipulation often goes unnoticed.
Okay.
The world of multi-level marketing companies, or MLMs.
Oh, MLMs.
Yes. These companies, often disguised as legitimate opportunities, are notorious for predatory tactics in cult-like environments.
I've definitely seen some red flags with MLMs.
And language plays a key role in luring recruits and maintaining their loyalty.
It's clear.
MLM language is a masterclass in toxic positivity.
I see that.
It's a barrage of motivational slogans, hashtags, and success stories. creating a facade of excitement and possibility that masks the often harsh realities.
It's all about creating a dream world that doesn't actually exist.
Exactly. And one of their key strategies is this relentless focus on mindset.
Mindset.
Yeah. They preach that success is simply a matter of positive thinking and believing in yourself.
Which can be appealing to those struggling or feeling disempowered.
Oh, absolutely. But this emphasis on mindset also deflects responsibility away from the MLM itself.
So if you're not successful, it's your fault, not the company's.
Exactly. It's classic gaslighting, making individuals doubt their perceptions and blame themselves for failures rather than questioning the system exploiting them.
That's a clever tactic.
It is. Now, MLMs also excel at creating a sense of community.
Right. Often referred to as a sisterhood or tribe.
Exactly. And this can be alluring, especially in an increasingly isolating world.
It's like a prepackaged support system.
Right. But this community comes at a price. MLMs encourage members to isolate themselves from friends and family who express skepticism.
Labeling them as negative or dream stealers.
Exactly. It's another classic cult tactic, creating an us versus them mentality that reinforces loyalty and demonizes dissenters.
So they're cutting people off from their actual support systems.
Right. And they also use thought-terminating cliches, like you're just not a go-getter.
To shut down doubts and criticisms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stifling critical thinking and discouraging members from questioning the MLM's legitimacy.
It's all about controlling the narrative.
It is. Now, Montell draws a fascinating parallel between MLM ideology and the Protestant work ethic, highlighting how they tap into deeply ingrained beliefs about hard work, meritocracy, and the American dream.
So they're playing on our cultural values.
Exactly. They prey on people's fear of failure and desire for financial stability, offering a seemingly easy path to success that often leads to disappointment and financial ruin.
It's a recipe for exploitation.
It is. And Cultish features personal stories of individuals lured by MLM's seductive language.
Okay.
Some escaped with minimal damage, while others became deeply entrenched, struggling to break free from the manipulation and financial pressure.
It's a reminder that anyone can fall prey to these tactics.
Absolutely. These stories serve as cautionary tales, reminding us to be wary of any business opportunity relying heavily on motivational jargon pressure tactics and a cult-like atmosphere of unwavering belief.
It's about trusting our gut and being critical of what we see.
Right. Now, from the deceptive world of MLMs, let's turn our attention to a realm often associated with health and well-being.
Okay.
The fitness industry. Yeah. However, as Cultish reveals, even this seemingly positive space can harbor manipulative language and tactics.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Well, the book delves into the rise of cult fitness studios.
Cult fitness.
Yeah. Examining how they tap into our need for belonging and purpose.
Much like religious groups or alternative communities.
Exactly. And they often employ similar linguistic strategies to create a sense of exclusivity, devotion, and even spiritual transcendence.
Wow. It's like they're blurring the lines between fitness and religion.
They are. And Montell explores various studios labeled cultish,
Okay.
ranging from the high-intensity spin classes of SoulCycle to the emotionally charged yoga practices of The Class by Taryn Toomey and the affirmation-heavy workouts of Intensati.
I've heard of some of those.
Yeah. What's interesting is how they blur the lines between fitness and spirituality, using language to craft a transformative experience beyond the physical benefits of exercise.
So it's not just about working out. It's about something deeper.
Right. Instructors become more than just fitness coaches. They become gurus, guiding followers on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment.
So they're taking on a more authoritative role.
They are. Now, SoulCycle, for example,
Okay.
is known for its dimly lit studios, pulsating music, and charismatic instructors who deliver motivational speeches during intense cycling routines.
So it's a very immersive experience.
It is. It's a carefully crafted sensory experience.
Yeah.
Designed to evoke euphoria, community, and a sense of religious fervor.
Interesting.
Now, The Class by Taryn Toomey
Okay.
combines rigorous yoga with breath work, emotional release techniques, and New Age affirmations.
Sounds intense.
It is. Participants are encouraged to push their boundaries physically and emotionally, often leading to tears, screams, and a sense of catharsis.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack in a fitness class.
It is. And Intensati,
Okay.
created by Patricia Marino, blends martial arts, dance, and yoga with spoken affirmations she calls incantations.
Incantations. That's an interesting choice of words.
It is. Moreno believes that combining physical exertion with positive self-talk leads to profound personal transformation.
Oh.
Now, while these studios and practices might seem harmless, Montell raises important questions about the potential for exploitation and abuse within this industry.
Oh.
She points to the case of Bikram Choudhury,
Bikram yoga.
the founder of Bikram Yoga, who faced accusations of sexual assault and creating a toxic culture of fear within his studios.
That's terrible.
It is. And Choudhury's case is a reminder of how the authority often bestowed upon fitness instructors can be misused to manipulate and exploit vulnerable individuals.
It's a dark side to an industry that's supposed to be about health and well-being.
Right. And Montell also examines the case of Core Power Yoga,
Core power yoga.
a popular chain facing lawsuits alleging exploitation of instructors and cult-like recruitment tactics.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, Core Power instructors are reportedly pressured to recruit students for expensive teacher training, using manipulative language like return the karma.
To guilt them into unpaid labor and unquestioning loyalty?
Exactly. These cases expose the darker side of the fitness industry, revealing how the pursuit of well-being can be exploited for financial gain and personal power.
It's a reminder to be critical of even the most seemingly positive environments.
Right. They underscore the need to be aware of the language used in fitness settings, question authority, and recognize red flags of manipulation and exploitation.
So even seemingly positive and empowering environments can be susceptible to cultish dynamics.
They can, reminding us to be discerning consumers of language and experiences, even in the realm of fitness.
It's a good reminder to be aware of the power of language, no matter where we encounter it. Okay, so we've talked about cults lurking in religions and even the fitness world.
Right. But now let's journey into the digital age, where the language of fanaticism thrives on social media.
The internet can be a breeding ground for that sort of thing.
It can. And it's given rise to a whole new breed of influencers, spiritual influencers.
Right. Those charismatic figures who amass devoted followers by offering spiritual advice, self-help tips, and mystical wisdom online.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already discussed Teal Swan.
Mm-hmm.
But the internet is teeming with such figures. And Cultish examines Bentinho Massaro.
Bentinho Massaro.
Yeah, a self-proclaimed spiritual teacher, notorious for his controversial teachings and cult-like following.
Okay, I'm not familiar with him.
Well, Massaro, often referring to himself as a human god.
A human god.
Yeah, blends New Age jargon, Eastern spiritual concepts, and pseudoscientific language, creating this aura of authority and mystique.
It's a potent combination.
It is. He talks about oneness, energy vibrations, and cutting through the illusion of mind.
Phrases that sound profound but often lack substance or coherence.
Exactly. And like many influencers, Massaro has mastered the art of the parasocial relationship.
Parasocial relationship.
Yeah. Using social media, he creates this sense of intimacy and connection with his followers.
Fostering a feeling of personal connection, especially for those seeking guidance and validation.
Right. He posts videos gazing intently into the camera, murmuring, "I love you," to his audience.
Yeah. It's a very calculated way to build trust and loyalty.
It is. But Massaro's teachings have raised red flags,
In what way?
particularly his rhetoric surrounding suicide.
Oh, that's concerning.
It is. He's been known to tell followers to be excited about death, and that looking forward to death makes you truly come alive.
Those are very dangerous statements.
They are. Especially given the vulnerability of many seeking solace and meaning in his teachings.
Absolutely. And Cultish details a tragic incident where a young man who attended one of Massaro's retreats died by suicide.
Raising serious questions about the potential harm of these influencers' teachings.
It's a reminder that words can have real-world consequences.
They can. And while Massaro's case is extreme, it highlights the potential dangers of unchecked online spiritual influencers.
Right. It emphasizes the need for discernment in choosing who we follow and trust, especially concerning our mental and emotional well-being.
Exactly. Now, the book also explores conspirituality.
Conspirituality.
Yeah, the merging of conspiracy theories with New Age spirituality.
Well, that's interesting.
This blend often leads individuals down rabbit holes of misinformation and distrust, isolating them from rational discourse.
It's like a double dose of distorted thinking.
It is. And a prime example is Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
a chiropractor and self-help author who promotes the idea of healing and manifesting desires through thought power.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Dispenza uses scientific jargon, quantum physics concepts, and mystical language, creating an illusion of authority despite lacking scientific backing for his claims.
So he's using the language of science to give his ideas legitimacy.
Exactly. He talks about upgrading your DNA, reprogramming your subconscious mind, and tapping into the quantum field.
Impressive sounding phrases with little scientific validity.
Right. And Montell points out that Dispenza's teachings appeal to those drawn to New Age ideas, and those disenchanted with traditional medicine or scientific explanations.
It's like he's offering an alternative reality.
He is, and his message of empowerment and self-healing is seductive, offering hope and control in an unpredictable world.
But the danger is that his claims are often unsubstantiated and potentially harmful.
Right, he's been criticized for suggesting positive thinking alone can cure diseases like cancer.
A message that could deter people from seeking necessary medical treatment.
Exactly. And Dispenza, along with figures like Massaro and Swan, exemplify the dangers of pseudo-scientific language and the seductive power of belief, especially when packaged with charisma and promises of self-improvement or spiritual enlightenment.
It's a potent mix that can easily lead people astray.
It can. Now, Cultish also examines how social media creates a cult of self.
A cult of self.
Arguing that platforms like Instagram and Facebook often foster narcissistic tendencies and a distorted sense of reality.
I can see that.
These platforms encourage us to curate idealized online personas, leading to feelings of inadequacy and a constant need for validation.
It's like we're all performing for an invisible audience.
Right. And the algorithms driving these platforms create echo chambers.
Reinforcing our existing beliefs and shielding us from opposing views.
Exactly. And this can be dangerous, leading individuals down paths of misinformation and extremism, isolating them from rational discourse.
It's like a breeding ground for polarization and division.
It is. And the book points to the rise of QAnon.
QAnon.
Yeah, a dangerous conspiracy theory movement, as a prime example of how social media can weaponize misinformation and create a cult-like following.
QAnon is a whole other rabbit hole.
It is originating on online message boards.
Right.
It's evolved into this complex web of conspiracy theories, alleging a secret cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles controlling the world.
It's a very dark and disturbing worldview.
It is. And followers believe Donald Trump is a messianic figure fighting this cabal.
Okay.
And that a great awakening is imminent, exposing the truth and punishing the evildoers.
It's a very apocalyptic narrative.
It is. And QAnon language is a mix of coded messages, cryptic pronouncements, and slogans that create a sense of exclusivity and urgency.
Drawing followers deeper into their web of belief.
Exactly. They talk about deep state conspiracies, fake news, propaganda, and the need to trust the plan.
Phrases that resonate with those feeling disenfranchised or distrustful of mainstream institutions.
Right. And the movement has gained traction,
Unfortunately.
especially among right-wing conservatives.
Okay.
And it's been linked to real-world violence and threats, including the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
That's a terrifying example of how online conspiracy theories can spill over into the real world.
It is QAnon's rise is a chilling example of how the language of fanaticism can spread rapidly online, fueled by algorithms, echo chambers, and the seductive allure of conspiracy theories.
It's a stark reminder of the dangers of misinformation in the digital age.
It is, and it demonstrates the real-world consequences of unchecked misinformation and the dangers of blindly trusting online sources, especially those promoting fear, division, and violence.
It's a call to be more critical and discerning consumers of information.
It is. So as we conclude our deep dive into Cultish, what key insights can we take away?
Well, I think it's clear that cultish language isn't limited to fringe groups or extreme ideologies.
Right. It's often disguised beneath positivity, empowerment, or spiritual enlightenment.
Making it crucial to develop a critical ear and recognize how language can manipulate our emotions, beliefs, and actions.
Exactly. We need to be aware of our vulnerabilities.
Our desire for belonging, purpose, or certainty can make us susceptible to these influences.
Right. So it's about cultivating healthy skepticism, questioning authority,
Yeah.
and being wary of those demanding, unquestioning loyalty.
Exactly. We also need to be mindful of the language we use and promote, both online and offline.
Right. Words have power.
And we have a responsibility to use them ethically, avoiding language that promotes fear, division, or harm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And perhaps most importantly, trust your gut.
If something feels off, it probably is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you question a group or individual's language or tactics, do your research, seek dissenting viewpoints, and talk to trusted individuals.
There's no shame in seeking help or questioning beliefs. It's a sign of strength and critical thinking.
Exactly. Remember, as Amanda Montell reminds us, the most fulfilling life is when we narrate ourselves, free from the manipulative influences of those seeking to control us through language.
Be discerning, be critical, and most importantly, be yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the captivating and often unsettling world of cultish language.